I really wanted to build an Artemis rocket, but when it was all done, I felt the stand was a bit underwhelming, boring even. So I went in a completely different direction and made it much more fun. Plus, I have a cool light feature in my TV room. Let me show you how I did it. This video is sponsored by MetMo. More on them in a bit. People are going back to the moon. Man, when I was a kid, I was all about the moon missions, despite the fact they all happened before I was born. I still have some of the moon stuff I found at flea markets and garage sales back in the day. But the Artemis is not your grandpa's moon rocket. Nope, this thing is up to date. It's cutting edge, and it's expandable as the moon mission requirements need it to be. It is an odd color, though. If you squint hard enough, it kind of looks like the Saturn rocket and the space shuttle had a baby. No matter what, it'll make for a cool model. I chose the Revell kit because it was available at my local hobby shop, and for a brand new model, it was reasonably priced. The last Revell kit I bought was the Blackbird, and that went together very well. And this one was no different. There are not that many parts, so it goes together very, very quickly. Because, well, it's actually a tube. All right, it's 3 tubes. So how complicated can this get? Actually, truth be told, I did mess up a couple times with parts that looked substantially similar to each other, but were definitely not the same. So my advice is to not assume anything and pay close attention to the instructions, especially when building the command module. I think I spent more time smoothing out the joints than actually building the model. I used a wee bit of CA glue as filler here and there, and I carefully sanded the surface, making sure to not get any flat spots. Luckily, the joins are on the sides, so those will be mostly hidden by the solid fuel rockets. Even if you're not perfect, no one's going to notice. And just like that, I got everything ready to paint. But before we get on that, I wanted to show you this amazing new gadget from MetMo. Every now and then, I need a tool that'll hold something solidly and allow me to free up both my hands. This is the MetMo Fractal Vise, and I have to tell you, it's built like a Swiss watch. The best parts are those pivoting grips that'll conform and hold any shape without damaging it. The vise is hefty enough to hold parts on its own, but if you want to clamp it to the workbench, MetMo has you covered. Actually, the clamp is fully adjustable too, so you can work on something straight up or at an angle. If you want to grab one of these, head on over to the MetMo website. They have a few versions of the Fractal Vise as well as a lot of other gadgets. And if you want to save some money, I have a referral link in the video description for 10% off your order. So let's get back to the rocket. Getting this model painted is both easy and a bit of a challenge. The first color, gloss white, is easy enough. Every paint line has that color. But those orangey colors are definitely not off the shelf. The instructions call out for a paint mix based on Revell acrylics, and they're probably accurate, but I like to use Tamiya acrylics, and well, I had to come up with my own mixes. So let's start with the easy step. The gloss white went on the solid fuel rockets, the command module, as well as the base for the main rocket. I used gloss white so I could get right into applying decals when I was done. I had to laugh while I was painting this thing. These rocket parts barely fit in the paint booth, and there was not an easy way to hold on to them. But I did get them all painted up with a couple of coats of gloss white. Okay, easy part done. Next, I masked off the black stripes on the solid fuel rockets. There are decals for these, but I thought it would be far easier to mask and paint them black. As you can see, I tend to go a little overboard when it comes to masking, and that's because I hate having to do touch-ups over my oopses. Then again, it does make it fun taking all the masking off to reveal the painted bits. There, pretty as a picture, and no touch-ups needed. Next, I masked for the orange on the main rocket using a combination of Tamiya tape and regular old green painter's tape. I mixed the color from Tamiya acrylics. These are orange and hull red. To my eye, this was reasonably close to the real thing. Again, I had to be creative about holding and spraying this massive part in the paint booth. It took a couple of coats to get it uniform, but this is where I ended up. Then it came time to mask for the yellowy orange bits. I knew I had to match that color on the decals or at least come close to it. I ended up with a mix of yellow, orange, and deck tan. And while it's not a perfect match, it comes pretty close. Again, I went way overboard and masked everything. I also masked around the steel-colored tube that's molded onto the main rocket. I then carefully painted these structures. Again, my patience paid off and there were no oopses and no bleeding. So now that the masking and painting is all done, we're in the home stretch. Just a couple of decals to stick on and I'm all... Oh, dear God. That is a lot of decals. Well, the only way to go through this is to have a montage with some inspirational music. There we go, all decaled up, and feeling strangely empowered. There may be a lot of decals, but I tell you, these are some of the nicest kit decals I've ever worked with. I then clear coated the white bits with semi-gloss clear, and the orange rocket got a matte coat. Final assembly is pretty easy. Just glue the rocket cones onto the rockets, and then attach everything to the main booster. And there we go, right up on the stand. And, well, competent as that stand is, this is a rocket. It needs something more dramatic. And it doesn't have to be expensive at all. I used some half-inch PVC piping from one of those monster hardware stores down the road, and I got this here LED strip kit from that online store you always end up buying from because you can't ever figure out where else to get this kind of stuff. I cut the piping to 18-inch lengths. I then made a central core that would go under the main rocket, as well as two pipes that go under the solid fuel rockets. These were taped together, and then I used some dollar store hot glue to keep things in place. To keep things extra sturdy, I glued the central core onto a piece of 2x4 lumber. The beauty of these light strip kits is that they come with everything you need. You just start at the bottom and wrap this around a few times. Oh, okay. I'll level with you. It's more than a few times. It's many times. Many times. I kind of lost track. But you get the picture. You just wrap it all the way up to the top of the tubes. And then you get the other reel and you wrap those around the side tubes. All that's left to do is modify the original stand so that the rocket can be mounted on the top of this LED studded post. And that just means a little nip here and a little tuck there and, okay, I didn't end up keeping much of it, but this should work just fine. This rocket holder is then glued to the top of the stand, and I drilled a 1/8-inch hole for a 1/8-inch rod as a safety feature to keep the rocket on the top of the stand. Now for the display. I went with the trusty old IKEA Detolf glass cabinet, but any glass cabinet will do. After placing the stand in the middle, I got the stuffing out of a dollar store pillow and I wrapped it around a light stand. And there is no science to this. The idea is to diffuse the LEDs and to make it look like the fiery exhaust from a rocket. I put the rocket on the top and then the moment of truth. Yes, this is far better than any plastic stand. And when I watch my movies, I keep the rocket light on. It makes for a great display. Well, everyone, thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video, and I hope I've given you some ideas on how you can display your models differently. They can be fun and practical as a rocket light can be. Thank you to MetMo for sponsoring this video. This fractal vise is the coolest hobby tool on my bench. Seriously, check out their site. You won't be disappointed. Until next time, keep building and keep trying new things. You'll surprise yourself with what you can do.